Hi, this is my team. I want to go through the reasons why I picked each player. So, first off, we've got Tom Stewart here. Why have I picked him? Well, simply because he's going to be that. He's going to be. We're going to eventually end up getting him anyway. So, I might as well just start with him. I know he may. He's more likely to get injured or some silly suspension. That's probably the major concern I have with Stewart. Otherwise, he's Geelong's key player and probably their best overall Supercoach player. Yeah, I mean there are a bit of risk with him. He may have a poor game now and then, which may drop his price. But I reckon he's a solid pick overall, and you eventually have him in your side, providing nothing crazy goes on. We've got Jordan Dawson. Why have I selected him? Simply because he's got a good role. He's one of Adelaide's key players now. He's just eventually going to have him as well. He might even outscore Stewart, who knows. He performed particularly well the back half of last year, sort of saved my season and helped me go up the ranks after a dodgy start. So look, Jordan Dawson, yeah, I'll keep him in my side for now. This is the reason why I'm going to select him. Liam Jones, yeah, this one I brought in a bit later on. I wasn't really sold on Jones simply because he essentially hasn't really had that high scoring. He did perform well in the practice match, but that was against North Melbourne, and the heat was kind of off then. So I reckon he will go up in value, yes, but he's just a Yo replacement, so that little extra cash that I've got for him will be spent out, which is what I've spent elsewhere a little bit, and I'll explain that later. Then we've got Jimby. He's just probably a must-have, just about, or a lock. You could say, I would say entirely a lock, because he's still a rookie, but look, Jimby, he's cheap. Well, he's high rookie price, which is a bit, it's sort of almost at a rookie, just almost at a rookie price since he's a higher draft pick. But Jimmy, yeah, must have, scored pretty well in the practice match and looks to be all good. Conor McKenna, yeah, he's staying in my side. This one's a bit, I reckon he will go up in value. It all depends how much. He did average, I think, around about 80 for one of his better years at Essendon. So he does have some scoring potential, but it does have a fairly low floor. I'm not too sure if he can get to that average of 80 quite yet. Maybe probably get an average of 70, I reckon. But you will definitely make money off him, providing he doesn't get injured and he stays on the park. He's just in there for now. Hopefully he can make like 150k, 200k. Then we can move on, either bring another rookie in to get some cash or bring into a key, a key solid selection, a lock. Okay, so now we've got Constable. He's looking pretty good condition at the moment. He performed well in the practice match and he's been selected, which is why I've got him. Yeah, just hopefully he gets a better role at Gold Coast. You get much of a chance at Geelong, and there's a lot of positive signs. Next off, we've got Darcy Wilmot. My thoughts on him, he's looking pretty good. Played those finals, so he's somewhere in the range in our best 22, maybe just out on the fringe. So he may get dropped, which is probably a concern with this pick as well. But hopefully he can generate some cash. He's not going to be the one I'll be looking to put on field, but he'll be there just in case. And hopefully he can generate 100 to 200k profit. Lockie Cowan, and unfortunately, I'm doing this straight after the match has been played between Carlton and Richmond, and unfortunately he has gotten injured. He did alright in the first half, but he just dropped down, which I'll speak about that later in the review. But I'm not too sure if we'll have to trade him out or just leave him there for now. But originally he was just going to be there for another, since he was selected, unlike some of the defensive rookies, and he is at cheap price, and he got some, his job security is a bit better than some of the other defenders. But he waited on news of the injury. Now on to the midfield here. We've got Clayton Oliver. 100. He's projected to get 129. The reason why I put him as captain and probably my number one place is because I reckon he's the best midfielder in the game. One of the best contested midfielders. And he's going to win that ball. And he's an okay user. Yeah, but look, I reckon he might win. To me, I reckon he should be favourite to win the Brownload. Could be wrong about that, but look, he's a gun. Maybe a bit over. Some people may think he's a bit overpriced. You could probably get him cheaper later on. You probably could. But it's one of those situations where you've got to have Oliver at your side, providing he doesn't get injured or has a large suspension. Oh yeah, so Ola, yep, pick him. We've got Bontempelli. The main reason why I've picked him and why he stayed to my side is simply because he's, Dunkley's gone, which frees up the midfield, more midfield time for him, more on ball time, which should lead to more scoring, and hopefully he might even have it, one of the best Supercoach seasons ever. Who knows? Bulldogs still do have a decent midfield, and there'll be still other midfielders that will share the load. But I reckon Bontempelli will go up in price a little bit this year and average a bit more this year. Maybe not too much more. It's a player we've got to bring in anyway at some point if you don't have him. But I see a lot of other teams have him. Jake Steele, why have I kept him on my side? It's simply because, I do reckon he's undervalued. If you can go back to some of those heights he had a few years ago. It wasn't his best last year. Still was a decent player. He's an outstanding midfielder. But he needs to get just a little extra next level to get close to that Brownlow to contention, I reckon, and become that, that top midfielder. It's going to be maybe a bit harder with St Kilda this year since they might not get as many Supercoach points due to, being having some of the major injuries, but they could be put more emphasis and Steele to dominate more. I don't know. Hopefully Steele could stay on the park because he did kill me at the start of last year. And it sort of set me back as well. There's another pick that set me back last year, a bit unlucky. So, Tom Green, my thoughts of this pick, maybe a little bit risky. It seems like everyone's going on him, so you sort of force into the pick, because if he goes off, then, you're behind the rest of the pack. But if he fails, then, it's not the end of the world. But look, if I look at the upside, you can see that, Hopper, Toretto, they left GWS, but then should free up more midfield time to Tom Green, get that inside midfielder. But it's something we all want from him, which is why he's expected to increase. I understand that. But, it's not always a guarantee, but I still reckon he'll go up. I just think, it's one of those picks, everyone seems to jump on, but could fail. There's a potential for that, but he should go up, and maybe not quite as much as I reckon what some of the people think. But yeah, he should go up in value. Jacob Hopper, what do I reckon about him? Look, to be honest, I reckon it's that good of a pick, to be honest. He will go up in value, and he only scored 67 last night, which isn't that great. It's probably a little bit concerned about Hopper. Seems like everyone jumped on him, and you have to stay with him just in case he goes off as well. But I actually reckon there's probably better other mid-prices that you could still pick. I mean, the still isn't over yet. Still got like another 12 more hours from where we're recording. Or maybe a bit less than that. But you still got some time to make up your mind. Unfortunately, if you've already selected Hopper, that's it. But I reckon, a few other players like Warple, which we'll get to second, and like Setterfield, could potentially be better options. Maybe even Finn Callahan. There's probably might even be a few other options too, other than those ones that I mentioned, but they're the main ones that I'm thinking at the top of my head right now. So Hopper, hopefully he can have a better game, and I still reckon he'll go up in value, but I don't reckon not as much as what other people think. And that's why I wasn't Hopper. Hopefully he'll come back to form, and look, we'll just have to wait and see on this. He may perform better later in the year, or may take a few rounds to get into it. Warple, why have I picked Warple? Well, this is simply because, he has reached that high 90s before we won Hawthorn's Best and Furious in 2019. But ever since pretty much the pandemic started, he hasn't particularly played all too well. But since Hawthorn have got rid of their two best midfielders in O'Meara and Tom Mitchell, they should free up more inside midfield minutes. Isn't necessarily the best kick in the world, which is probably the biggest flaw of Warple, which is why he might not make it to 100 average. But I actually reckon he might actually reach it. Simply because he's, who's Hawthorn's best midfielder? Who's going to do it? You have to rely on Dry Newcomb. He's fairly young. Warple isn't that old either, but he's still a few years older. Hawthorn, in my opinion, got the worst midfield in the competition because there's just simply no one. He's probably not even a B grader. So he should basically get all Hawthorn's midfield, most of Hawthorn's inside midfield time, and he should go up. He did alright in the practice match. I just can't see this pick really going down or failed terribly. Maybe fail, maybe a little bit, maybe only make it. He should make a minimum of 100k, I reckon. Warple. I just can't see this failing due to Hawthorn not really having any, any good midfielders anymore. So, look, I just can't see how that's a fail. Selection, unless he gets injured or something crazy happens, I just don't think it's a bad option at all. Will Ashcroft. Yeah, well, that's pretty much straightforward. One of the best rookies coming through. Cam McKenzie, and yeah, another rookie that's coming through. Not quite as much of a lock as Ashcroft, but it did well in pre-season. Again, this might be that sort of Josh Ward type who has a slow start to the season, which I hope not, because you want your rookies to perform well straight at the bat. But yeah, look, he seems to be like a solid selection. Oscar Baker performed well in the practice match, which is why a lot of people selected him. Okay, well, looks like this guy can score quite high, and that's the reason why I've selected him. Again, job security may be a bit of an issue, and that's probably the only issue I may have with this particular pick, but he should go up in value, maybe provide some bench cover, and potentially could score more than McKenzie. Maybe not Ashcroft. We'll see. We'll soon see. Campbell Chesser, got him in, simply because, he's a bit cheaper. A little bit concerned, maybe he did have the injury concerns as well, which may impact the amount of minutes he gets at the moment. But he should go up in value, hopefully. He is a rookie price, a lower rookie price, you should say. So, look, I picked him. It's a free some cash elsewhere, and it's sort of made up with a bunch of other moves, which I'll explain in a minute. Because Phillips is out, so I decided to bring him in. He wasn't selected, unfortunately. Considering all the pre-season hype, he should be selected. Which is a bit disappointing, considering he's playing for North Melbourne too. Which is the reason why I brought Campbell Chaser in. I still reckon Phillips might score more once he does get selected. Davey, well, I picked Alwyn Davey Jr. Well, simply because, he's probably one of the better forward midfield rookies we're going to get in. To be honest, or he's going to be selected anyway. May not have that high scoring, but he's still a fairly low price, and he's been selected. Played it alright in a practice match. I'm not expecting too much from him, simply because of the role. But he could probably get an 80 or 90 if he if he kicks a couple of goals, and if Essendon have a good game, he may get that somewhat decent score, which is probably what we want. And hopefully he can get to like 300k, sell him off, and then move on to the next chapter in our team. Okay, so the rucks. We got Sean Darcy. Why have I picked him? Simply because I reckon he's got the highest score potential at any ruck in the game. And that's the main reason why I picked him. I know durability is a bit of an issue and why some people are hesitant. I did have English in my pre-season earlier, but I thought it's a bit of high risk with English too. I think Darcy played more matches in English last year, I believe. And as a result of that, I just feel a bit more confident with Darcy. He might be able to pump out those more higher and scores a bit more than what English has, even though English has done that in the past. The English is coming back from his injury, I reckon too, is a bit shaky. And I reckon Darcy had a better pre-season. English may become good later on in the season. It's kind of tough with the rucks. I was hoping, since last year, English wasn't a ruck forward. If he was this year, cool, we could just put him out our forward line. And it'd be less of a big deal. But he isn't a forward, which makes it harder. So that's the reason why I've basically gone with Darcy. Just the upside, just a bit more there. And compared to Witts, he's got a higher ceiling than Witts. Witts maybe a bit more consistent, and the role is more defiant, as what he's shown last year. Yeah, Witts is a clear main ruck at Gold Coast. He's just that main ruckman. But with Darcy, you've still got Luke Jackson may share a bit. Which I hope Darcy's still the main ruckman, and I hope he gets still that high ruck time minutes. But it's never a guarantee. Marshall, well, I think that's probably another obvious selection. No other main ruckman, and I think there's some of the other ruckmen in England injured, like Hayes. And I think is it Campbell, some other ruckman maybe there, which may be a big concern with Ross Lyon too. Maybe a new coach could impact Marshall's scoring, but he did well in the practice match. So I reckon he should go up in value, increase in price, have an average higher average more this year. So yeah, Marshall, yeah, must have. And a lot of other teams have him too, so if he goes off, you're behind the ball game there. Nick Madden, I didn't really want to do this selection, but it sort of frees up a cash for a few other selections, like going from which I'll explain to my forward line in a minute of why I've done that. But it can be used as a loophole, and I'll talk about my forward line in a minute with my other forward ruck solution. I originally had, that City ruckman make Andrew in, and he wasn't selected, unfortunately, even though he played the practice match. And Peter Adams has that role there wrapped up, so you can't really go too much there. And unfortunately, there's no really good rookie ruckman, essentially. You do have Radaglia, which we'll talk about in a minute. Okay, so the forward line. Josh Dunkley, well, I'm not going to really say much about that. Everyone has him. He's going to be the number one forward, most likely. Number one starting forward anyway. We'll talk about like Max Gawn and stuff later right in the year. I reckon he might become forward. It could potentially be F1 as well, which is why I haven't selected him in the ruck either. He's most likely could or has a higher likelihood of becoming a forward in the first DPP selection, and hopefully he is. That will just make it life a lot easier for that forward line. So Dunkley is a lock. It's just essentially it's a midfielder as well. Rosie, yeah, this one I'm not as 100% sold on as some other people. Some people say he's an absolute lock. I wouldn't say that. Even Dunkley may not be that 100% lock either, simply because he does have a little bit of injury history too. So he isn't that 100%, a perfect, forward line player or forward line, selection as everyone's saying, because he does have that slight injury risk. But Rosie is probably still is a little bit more of a risk, but everyone's on the ball with him. So it's another selection where, if he goes off, you're behind the ball game. He did have a good second half to last year, which is why a lot of people are going with him. If he can get that more midfield minutes at time, which is what we're expecting, he could potentially go off and get to 110 average. But he does have that low floor in those poor games. I reckon his floor will increase this year, hopefully. But I still reckon he's still a little bit off the top midfielders in the game. And that's why he won't get those scores of 115 plus yet, I reckon. Still a little bit off with that floor. He's still a bit lower than some of the other midfielders. We got Taranto. He scored 103 last night, which is okay. If he could score 100 every week, that'd be great. The biggest problem with Taranto, again, is disposable. It was a bit disappointing when I had him a few years ago, which is why I'm a sort of bit, do I really want to go through this selection again? Because I'm aware of his disposal efficiency isn't quite there as some of the other midfielders. He does get the ball quite well. He is going to play the contestant role. But again, it's one of those picks where, a lot of other people are going on him as well, but you just got this feeling, this might not quite as work as well as what other people may say. And I know I've said that a few times, but, it's one of those picks that could potentially, not fail, but he might not go up in much as he might not average as much as what we're expected, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. He's still probably average more than last year due to the role being more of the main midfielder Richmond compared to GWS. Because that's something that Richmond lacking is that contestant, inside midfielder, getting those clearances. So as of that, I do reckon he will go up a bit, but not as much as what other people say, due to his disposable efficiency. And Eric Gordon brought him in recently due to his practice game, and I thought everyone's jumping on him. He's no longer a pod, and he's sort of a player, not must-have, but a selection where if you don't have him and he goes off, then you're behind the pack. It's another one of those selections again. Unfortunately, a lot of people are sheep and seem to follow after one good game, which seems to be a common with a lot of these players. And it's a player that I'm worried, he could go off. And look, Mills wasn't there, so he's not going to get 180 each week. No player is going to do that, even if you're Gary Ablett. No one is, people are going to tag you the next game, or you may be off a game. You're going to have a poor game, and I think with Mills coming back in, that will lower his scoring due to him getting less inside midfield minutes. Don't get me wrong, he will still go up in value, and he's still a good selection. I'm happy with the selection. Can he become F1? Probably not. Maybe not F2, but I still reckon he'll become one of the better full lines, or starting selections anyway. Then there'll be a few other players who eventually come in, like Max Gorn, who may outscore him. Flanders, now this is a change that I made just recently due to selection. Due to some of the selections of what's his name, Toby McLean. He wasn't selected, which is a bit of a shock. I know job security isn't 100%, but he was a decent or an okay player for the Bulldogs before he got injured, and he had that decent scoring, or for forward line anyway. Player, even for a midfielder, it'd still be a decent selection, which is kind of a bit frustrating. That changes your structure a little bit, particularly with Yo going, not playing selected, and then getting injured, and then you've got Phillips and another guy not being selected. Well, Phillips, I can at least go down with a chaser, but with the full line, it's a little bit more frustrating. So I decided in between Flanders or Fife. Fife, I reckon, might have that slightly more high scoring, but the role just isn't quite there. Well, Flanders may have a potential better role, but Fife, we know Fife can score well if he plays the right role, but I don't think he's not going to be that that premium midfielder like he used to be. Unfortunately, the injury sort of destroyed his career a little bit, or the back end of his career, and he's not going to get that midfield minutes as much as what we're expecting, and he's going to be that key, sort of like a key forward. He's a little bit shorter than some of the other key forwards, but he's that strong marking forward. Do have concerns about his goal kicking. He's not a natural forward, but he is a very strong mark. He's a great mark of a player, great mark, or marker, I should say, better English. But Flanders at a cheaper price, it frees up a little cash, a little bit extra cash, just in case some of these rookie selections failed, or another rookie that comes along that no one has selected or goes off that I don't have. I could just use that extra cash and bringing a failed rookie, and that would help my team out there as well. That on the other hand, Flanders could have that low poor scoring compared to Fife, which may put me behind some of the other Packers. Fife is kind of high ownership than I thought. I know he's a key player and he's won a couple of Brownloads, so it's sort of like Dustin Martin. People just pick him because of his reputation rather than actually being a good Supercoach selection. But Flanders and Fife should go up. Fortunately, due to the late change of McLean not playing, there's a bit sort of changes things at the last minute. But there were ways that I figured out a few ways what you could do, that I've done, and essentially, look, you could still a Fife or Flanders. It's up to you really who gets more. You've also got Josh Bruce there too. He's been selected over Toby McLean. So if he's playing every week, he should go up in price anyway. I'm not too sure if he scores more as a forward or a defender. No, he's high potential scoring for forward. If he has kicks a big bag, he can go up drastically, as we saw that North Melbourne game. But again, I reckon as a defender, be a bit more consistent with the scoring. So that's on everyone else to decide if they want to pick him. Green, again, he's had a good pre-season. He's looking good. I mean, he's on field, unfortunately. I could probably switch him up with Bruce as a last-minute option. That's probably the only other player I'll probably switch from Green, but Green's a bit cheaper. We'll talk about Josh Bruce with some of the other selections I may swap him with. As Josh Bruce is a mature age player, so we know what we sort of got to get for him. Maybe not quite in defence, which makes it a little bit unpredictable. Green, hopefully he is playing a forward-line playing for Hawthorn. Not really the best recipe, but if we could score a few goals, get like a 70 or 80 in one of their better games, they do play Essendon, so there's a potential for that. But there's still a chance of him getting like a 40 or a 30, and I do have him on field, which concerns me a little bit. And for the last bit here, we've got Radaglia, which I was never really sold on, but I had to bring him in due to McLean not playing, and as a rookie emergency, essentially for the ruck. Because Mac Andrew that Sydney Ruckman wasn't selected, and it sort of throws away again my structure a bit with the ruck. Well, the emergency ruckman, so I thought, well, I'll bring a Radaglia, which I was never sold on due to his poor scoring, and he's a slightly higher price than some of these other rookie ruckmen, which is very limited. Hopefully, Radaglia can get like a couple 70 or 80 games, and we can just move on from him. His job security doesn't seem as bad as my first thought. He's been selected, so we'll just have to see how we go with Radaglia. I mean, he is a mature age player, so he has played before, but I'm not. It's not 100% sold on the selection, but it's the only other option we really have for the emergency ruck. And Chandler. Now, this one I did have Sam Sturt. At some point I switched to him. I thought, oh, Sam Sturt scored well in the past, but wasn't selected. And it's a little bit frustrating because I think he potentially could come in later on in the year as a rookie. Hopefully when we still need it. And that's what I'm thinking about some of these other rookies who weren't quite ready yet, but may come later on in the year. And Chandler, he's been selected. Unfortunately, I reckon he may get moved out once Bailey Fish comes in. And that's why I'm a bit... and that's what's a bit frustrating with some of these rookie selections. It's just... it's more on the coach and how the team's going and who's in and out. Hopefully he can play a few games and get some cash generation. But I do a bit concerned with Chandler. I could upgrade him to a Josh Bruce, which does have a bit more security. It may have a slightly bit more high scoring potential, but again, he's a bit more expensive and he doesn't have the best job security as well. So that's probably the only player that I may change at this side. Josh Bruce, I'm kind of tempted about it. Because I do have a bit more of an idea of what Josh Bruce players are going to score. We know a bit more about his past. With Chandler, I'm not too sure about, his role or his ranking in the side. And he's a one that is probably the player that I'm 100% sold on in this side, really. Every other player I've got, at least, a bit more certainty or a bit more, confidence in. But Chandler, it's just a last minute pick. That's why I reckon it's more likely to go wrong. But, hopefully you can get like a couple of goals against the Bulldogs. And get like a 60 at least, and that'd be, half decent, Alright, that's it for today. Leave a like and subscribe if you want more content. Let me know your thoughts on this team and some of the selections, that I could change or that you're doing instead. Thank you for watching.